I came here tonight to play chess. A game of chess is like a sword fight. You must think first, before you move.
All right, scholars. Back at it again. We almost finished with the How to Play Chess series, just the basics of piece movement and intro to the board. Castling is what we're doing today. So we are almost wrapped up with all this, and hopefully it's been helpful. Those of you who have been wanting to learn how to play, hopefully you've taken advantage of this. And I think I could be kind of long-winded at some point, so maybe over-explaining, but it's kind of hard when I don't have the feedback of the young scholar in front of me to tell me or to signal in some form that he or she understands what I'm trying to teach. So I'm talking to air right now, so I would rather over-explain than under-explain. So anyway, I'm gonna keep going. So let's look at castling. Okay, with castling. Castling is a combination move. It is done with the king and the rook. It is the only time where the king will move 2 squares. Remember, normally the king moves 1 square in any direction. Well, in this case, the king is actually going to move 2 squares. It can move 2 squares to the right or 2 squares to the left, depending on whether if you have a castling rook on this side. So in this case, the king is able to castle this way. It's called king side or short side castling. Well, the king will move 2 squares and end up on the G. The rook will then just move on the other side of it. Okay, so the king moves over twice, and the rook just moves on the other side of it. And I'll explain a little bit more about short side, long side, and all of that here in a second. So for now, just know that the king moves 2 squares, and the rook goes on the other side of it. Okay. Okay, so again, the king moves over twice, the rook goes on the other side of it. So click on the square the rook will end up on. So if the king moves over twice, rook goes on the other side, the rook will end up here. Okay. All right, so now we're doing the queen side or the long side. Queen side is queen side because the queen initially sets up here. This is the queen spot. So this will be queen side castle. This will be king side because hey, you're on the king side. This is the king side. This is the queen side. The rules are still the same. The king is going to move over twice, and the rook is going to move on the other side of it. King moves over twice, rook moves on the other side of it. Okay. Again, the king moves over twice, the rook just moves on the other side of it. King moves over twice, rook moves on the other side. Okay, queen side. Where's the queen? Normally, beside the queen, beside the king. So this will be queen side. This will be king side, where the king is. So we're gonna castle queen side. That means the king is gonna move this way, twice. So it's still moving twice. Rook moves on the other side of it. And king side. King moves twice. Rook moves on the other side of it. Okay, where would the rook be if black castle king side? So king moves over twice. Rook goes on the other side. Click on the square the rook will be on if black castled queen side. So if I'm going 2 squares over, rook goes on the other side of it. Okay, the notation for castling is 0-0 for the short side or the king side. It'll be 3 zeros for the queen side, 0-0-0 for the queen side. So we're gonna castle. Go, see the king moved over twice, rook went on the other side of it. If you're gonna castle in a live game, make sure you grab the king first. If you're castling in a game, make sure you make sure you grab the king first. Okay, again, the notation, queen side is 3 zeros. So 0-0-0. King moves over twice. Rook goes on the other side. Grab the king first. All right, so let's look at some of the rules of why you will not be able to castle. So the king cannot castle out of check, through check, or into check. It cannot castle out of check, through check, or into check. All right, so you know what check is now. The queen is checking this king. Okay, so we can't castle. All right, the king moves over twice, rook's on the other side. That will get you out of check, but it's illegal to castle out of check. All right, so we can't castle at this point. So we can't castle out of check. We won't be able to castle through check, and I'll explain that a little better once that position comes up. But right now, we cannot castle out of check, so that's the reason why we can't castle. Okay, now. Oh, okay, yeah. So not being able to castle out of check, through check, or into check, those are stipulations. But also, the king cannot have moved yet out of his original position. The king cannot have moved yet, and also the castling rook cannot have moved yet. So since this rook has already moved, we no longer can castle. Of course, this rook is gone, so we definitely can't castle this way. Since this rook has moved, we cannot castle anymore. Okay, so this rook is moved. In order to castle, the king cannot have moved yet, and the castling rook cannot have moved yet. All right, so now, through check. I told you can't castle out of check, through check, or into check. This will be an example of through check. Through check. This queen controls this diagonal here. This queen controls this diagonal. So if I were to castle, this king will move over twice, and the king will go on the other side. But if I move twice, I would actually move through the diagonal this queen is controlling. So I can't do that. I can't do that. I cannot castle through check. That's what it means. That's what through check means. I can't go through what the opponent's piece is controlling. All right, so why can't I castle now? In the original setup, the white queen would be in this position, the white king would be here. So that means the king has moved. Remember, the king cannot have moved yet. Since this king has moved, we can no longer check, and we can no longer castle. Okay, why can't we castle queen side? Look at the queen, look at the queen's castle, look at the rook over here. It's moved already. So we can't castle queen side. We can still castle king side, but not queen side because the castling rook has moved. Okay. Why can't we castle queen side? The king is not in its original position. So the king has moved. The king cannot have moved yet. Okay. Why can't we castle king side? Well, look, we're in check. So we cannot castle out of check. King side. Why can't we castle king side? Well, look at the rook. It's no longer in its original position. It has moved. Even if the rook moves and then comes back, you still can't castle. Once that rook has moved, you can't castle this way. You might still be able to castle this way. And in this position, you cannot because you'll be castling through check. But this is definitely a no because this rook has moved. Okay, that does it for castling. Castling is done. All right, so see you in a bit.
We saw them practicing with each other. Their kung fu is first class.